In phase 2 of this 3-part series, we are going to teach you how to paint copper armor. We showed you how to paint silver using the Household Knight from Bellum's Conquest game. Today we're going to show you how to paint copper, and the paints that you're going to need for this tutorial are
rough iron, weapon bronze, true copper, greedy gold, and everybody's favorite, quick shade strong tone. We're going to begin by applying rough iron to all the areas that we want to be copper or bronze on this model. Rough iron's a great color. It's almost like a brownish, dark metallic tone. It's one of my favorite colors in our lineup, and it's great for pulling off a true copper effect. It also applies really, really smoothly and has really great coverage. As you can see here, as I'm painting this little armored bit, this intricate piece on the horse's armor, I figured this was a great area to bring some contrast. We've got a lot of silver and red on the model, and adding that deeper, darker brown spot, that brownish rough iron spot, really helps to draw the eye. We're also going to apply it to the underskirt in the rear armor of our horse, our Household Knight's horse here. I love this paint. It's probably one of the smoothest and best covering paints I've ever used. All of the paints in our metallics range are, but rough iron really is exceptional. Just giving the model a once over here, we're going to repeat those steps on the other side of the model, but first I wanted to dab and add some detail to the crown of our horse's head armor and these little tags here, these little buckles that he has hanging off the back of his rear armor. We're just going to focus that on the inner piece just to add some more detail and some interesting dynamic contrast on this model. Of course, we're going to be bringing all of these areas, all of these darker rough iron areas up to a higher, brighter copper level, but we want to make sure that it's not too bright because we do want to have some contrast when we apply our gold colors in our later tutorial. We're also going to apply rough iron to the wreath around the crown here on this knight. Really awesome model from Bellum Wargames and Conquest the game. The Household Knight, I've been dying to paint this up. You've probably seen me paint the cape in previous tutorials, but really, really happy I got to dig my hands into this fantastic model from Bellum Games. Just applying that rough iron to all the areas. This is painting by numbers here, just blocking in all the areas that we want to be copper in later stages of the tutorial. Now we're going to apply some weapon bronze to our wet palette. You want to thin it down a little bit. It does have very fine metal flake. You can see here it just runs, and this helps it to cover the model really cleanly and smoothly so you can paint in all of those details in later stages really nice and easily. It's all about ultimate control with our metallics war paints. Now what I'm going to do here with the weapons bronze is I'm going to trace in and almost paint in 1/3 of that round eyelet on the front armor of our horse. I'm going to block in all of that, and then as the paint dries on the brush, I'm just going to brush it back and almost blend it. It's almost like a dry brush technique that I'm using. I've painted the first 1/3 of it. As you can see, I'm going to show you again here on the upper right, and it's kind of focal point towards the eyes of the horse. I'm going to make sure that I get it perfectly covered and then just pull it back, and blend it in to that rough iron that we painted in a previous step. We're going to be applying a pre-highlight before we apply a wash. This is a nice simple step. It's just going to bring out some of the brighter tones in the model before we do darken it back down with the wash. So this pre-highlight we're going to apply to all the areas of rough iron that we want to be painting copper for this tutorial, just like here on the crown of the horse, just blocking that in and leaving some of that rough iron into the recesses, feathering that weapon bronze onto the raised areas of the model. We'll apply it to the inside of those little buckles like I mentioned before, and of course the underskirt. I'm not sure what you guys call this, so for any of you fantasy and historical professionals and nerds out there, please correct me in the comments. I want to know what you'd call this piece of armor on the horse. Now that we have our base tone and our pre-highlight finished, we're going to use everybody's favorite quick shade strong tone. We're just going to apply this right out of the bottle. We don't even need to thin this down because we are going for a nice darkened copper effect. We're going to apply this to all the areas that we've previously painted, ensuring that we get a little bit of that strong tone on the outside areas in case of the wreath, so that it does add some separation between that rough iron, that copper color, and the silver armor underneath. What we're really going for when we're painting 3 different types of metallics on the same model is for those different colors to stand out from each other, even if we're using the same color paints. So again, apply this all over the model, ensuring that it does not pool. Just wick away any of the excess wash that you see settling a bit too much on the model with your brush. Once our wash is dried, we're going to move on to True Copper. This is the brighter of the two copper tones, and I'm just going to apply a very thin, a watered down highlight, very controlled, very smooth to the upper piece of that round piece of armor. We're going to apply that just very lightly. The thinner paint that you use, the easier these techniques are going to be. I'm going to be tracing a little bit of that True Copper on the uppermost portions of the crown areas on the horse. And I decided to go ahead and paint in, just for an added bit of contrast, the boots of our knight in our rough iron and copper. I did this a little bit after the fact, after giving the model a once over. So I applied a little highlight there, and of course I'm going to highlight the underskirt, as I keep calling it, and just a focal point in the inside of the buckles before moving on to greedy gold. And of course, like I mentioned previously, we are going to be using some of the same colors of our metallics paints as we would in different tutorials. Like in our gold tutorial, we will use this greedy gold as a base tone for our golds, but I'm using it here as a highlight for this copper effect. And what I really love to see is that burnished, almost brushed metallic look that you get when you mix that grayish, brownish, rough iron and work your way up through the coppers to your greedy gold. It's a very realistic, almost reflective looking metallic effect. And this was super simple to pull off. Remember, this was just 4 colors and 1 wash and a little bit of time. This is probably the quickest of all of the colors in this 3-part how to paint metallics tutorial. But to be honest with you, painting copper was probably my favorite stage so far, because I love seeing the gradation of colors that we're able to achieve with just 4 paints. And once you've applied all the final highlights with greedy gold, your Copper Armour tutorial is complete. And I gotta say, this Household Knight's really starting to take shape. Just wait until we get some of that gold painting on this model to really set it off and bring it to life. There's a reason that professional painters and everyday hobbyists alike put their trust in the Army painter Warpaints Metallics because of their fine metal flake and superior coverage. Remember that you could find all of our metallics paints in our brand new metallics paint set in stores soon.
And that concludes our how to paint copper armor tutorial. Tune into our final installation. We're going to show you how to paint gold armor using the paints from the metallics paint set. You can find this set at your friendly local game store at www.thearmypainter.com or from your favorite online retailer such as Amazon. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed painting this model. Remember that the magic in miniature painting is that it can be as simple or as challenging as you want it to be. With a few simple techniques, you're sure to achieve some great results. We'll see you next time.